Alrighty.
I might just pick it up, put it in there.
I would, but I'd embarrass you guys. Then I can walk around. I'll be back. Yeah, I don't know. Weighs what, a couple hundred pounds?
I'm pretty sure.
Well, you know, I can do it once.
Man, that's about it.
And then we'll be laid up.
Well, if that's a medical retirement, though. You get 3/4 of your pay without taxes. That's better than 100% of pay. Damn, here, hold this. Hold my beer. Anything starts with hold my beer, it's not going to go well. That's kind of
Really? Which one? You hold back and go like this?
Probably like Rocket City Rednecks.
Hold the beer and hold
Rocket City Rednecks.
They used to have a TV show on Netflix, and it's these NASA PhD guys,
Yeah.
but they live in Alabama, so on the weekends they do stupid stuff.
Oh, is that like the bonehead that made a steam-powered rocket? When it took off, it ripped the parachutes off, so when it got to 5,000 feet, started falling?
They
He had
made-
no parachutes?
No, they made a laser out of Blu-ray players, a working laser that can light fireworks.
Nice. Nice.
They made a go-kart out of a shopping cart.
They made a what?
A go-kart out of a shopping cart.
Oh, that's been done. That's nothing new. I want to see them put a jet engine in a pickup. That'd be fun.
They made a transformer suit, and then it actually, when you got inside and you turned into a little cart, you could go down the road. They went shopping and bought beer.
That would be fun. All right.
How's Santana treating you? Yeah, there's something new every day.
Yeah, it got a little slimy. All right, now, when we look at our engine, when you look in here, you'll notice that this number 4 main bearing is a little bit different than the rest of them. Okay, it's got this collar on it right here. You have this part and this part. Anybody care to take a guess what that's for?
What?
Number 4 main bearing has this on it, whereas the other ones do not. Anybody want to take a guess as to what this is all about? Thrust bearing. Now, Cummins has some pretty generous freaking specs on their protrusions and all that.
Look at that.
Yeah. So,
That doesn't seem right.
no, that's just the tab.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. You ain't getting that Covaruvius light beer virus, are you? It's just a head cold, right? Right. Covaruvius or Corona or Bud Light.
Oh, Ruiz is my last name.
Yeah.
Oh, Covaruvius virus.
Thinking about him.
I couldn't have named it something good like Dos Equis virus. Or, Captain Morgan virus or something. I mean, if you're going to name it after alcohol, name it after something good. Southern Comfort or Wild Turkey virus.
It's called White Claw now.
Called White Claw. Or what's that? Thunderbird. Cheap whiskey, cheap wines on Thunderbird?
Mad Dog 2020.
Mad Dog 2020. That'd be a cool name for it. What he died from? Mad Dog. Started frothing at the mouth. All right, so this controls my end play on my crankshaft. Okay, and that's a critical measurement when you're reassembling an engine. If the end play isn't correct, what's likely to happen if it's too tight? When this thing warms up, the crankshaft's going to bind up internally and either break the crankshaft or break the block, or if you're having a really bad day, both. Okay, so that end play has to be checked upon reassembly. The other thing that you should do, you can use plastic gauge, or if you have the time, what you would do is you would install a bearing cap, torque it to spec, and then measure the ID, and then you'd measure the corresponding journal on the crankshaft, and take the crankshaft's measurement from the ID measurement here, and the difference will give you your running clearance. Okay, so if you did that prior to reassembly, same thing with your cam bushings back here, you would know before you laid one part back into the engine if they're going to fit and if they're going to be within spec. Okay, so if I'm measuring IDs, and all of a sudden I realize I got one that doesn't fall in line, I know either the bearings in the kit that I bought are incorrect, and that happens, or the machining was incorrect. That normally doesn't happen. But at least I know I got a problem at this stage of assembly where it's really easy to fix. Right? So if I was like, oh, this bearing's not right, go to parts or go wherever, order up another set of bearings. You can even go one step further, and as your parts come in, you could take a micrometer and measure the bearing shell thickness, and that'll tell you if you've got the 10 over, 20 over standard bearing, and that way, before you even take the parts back to the shop, you'll know, hey, this is the wrong bearing. It's not correct. And that way when you get to the shop, so you'll have 3 or 4 pre-assembly measurements, so by the time you go to lay the parts in the block and do your final assembly, if there's a problem, it's something you did, like you put a cap on backwards. And then you're like, oh crap, that's easy to fix, and you're not really losing any time. Now this takes a lot of time during the rebuild to measure all this stuff first, and then measure the bearing shells, and then measure your clearances and do the math. I mean, you're looking at 3 or 4 days. But when that motor goes together, you know there's not going to be a problem. Versus the guy that just goes over to the parts, grabs the rebuild kit, starts putting bearings in the cap, lays the crankshaft in, torques everything down, and then, you know, puts it all together and it doesn't rotate. It's like, uh-oh, bad news. You know, sitting there full of oil, hits the starter motor because he wants to bar it over and set the valve. When the starter motor buzzes, you're like, that's bad, because it's not turning the crank. And then he goes, oh look, time for vacation. He checks out, Joaquin walks up, he's like, oh, this guy's gonna pay. This guy's gonna pay big time. I don't know if any of you have had to take over a mess like that.
Similar, but not motor-wise.
Yeah. I was a rookie.
Bolts like this.
Was that?
Bunch of bolts like this. Figure it out.
On the radiator assembly?
Yeah.
Oh, was it here?
Yeah. In Santa Ana.
Yeah. I ended up taking over a mess in Long Beach. I was probably on the floor for about 1.5 years. And it was one of those days where everybody called in sick. So we had like, the graveyard shift had like 3 mechanics. Normally it had like 12. And so here's this bus sitting there, brand new, sparkly, rebuilt, mint green Detroit 2-stroke that doesn't rotate. And it's already in the bus. I mean, everything's hooked up. Everything's hooked up. So my boss comes up and says, well, you interested in learning how to rebuild a motor? I'm like, yeah. Okay, there it is. Well, what's wrong with it? It doesn't turn. I'm like, what do you mean doesn't? You mean it doesn't start, right? He goes, oh no, we haven't got to that stage yet. It won't turn. So I put my socket on the cam pulley, and I'm like, ugh. Son of a bitch, it doesn't turn. So drain the oil, drop the pan. I had to wear a raincoat because these things bleed on you all day. I got rain dropping on me, and I'm like looking up at this thing, and I'm like, oh man. Cap number 3 on journal number 6. Cap number 2's on backwards. The rod caps are like rod cap 1's on rod cap 4. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So I just told the boss, I'm pulling the heads, I'm pulling the pistons, I'm just gonna start over. I don't know what kind of damage there is. He said, yep, got another kit for you. We were waiting for that. I was like, oh, dude, you set me up. So yeah, I just pulled both heads, pulled the pistons out. He had the rods on wrong. This was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So I had that for about a week. Alrighty, so let's do this. We're gonna go ahead and lay my crank in it. And then we're gonna start putting caps on. Okay, now, at this stage of the game, if we had the time, now my rebuild guys down there at Santa Ana, they don't really have the time to do all this pre-measuring, so they rely on plastic gauge. And you know, plastic gauge isn't bad. It's pretty friggin' accurate, actually. And I know a lot of assemblers that just do the plastic gauge. It's, you know what, Mike, that's nice if I had the time to do that, but I got a customer needing a truck because that's his living. And you know, if I take a week longer, then he's out a week pay, and he might be missing some loads. He says, I'd love to do it that way, but I just don't have time. And I'm like, you know what, I got no problems with that. I got no problem with that. So they'll lay some plastic gauge on here. Just a little thin piece of wax. Looks like fettuccine noodle, right? Or angel hair pasta.
Actually more like
Dental floss.
yeah.
Dental floss.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, I couldn't remember dental floss. Yes, I brush my teeth, just saying. Yeah, it's about the same size as dental floss. So you lay it on there, and what that wax does, it's paraffin wax. It's highly predictable. So when a certain amount of force is applied to it, it'll spread out a certain amount. Now they got different colors. They got red, green, orange, blue, I think black, but I'm not sure. But the different colors represent different ranges of measurement, right? So you have a, like if you want to measure something between 50 and 70 thousandths of an inch, because that's what you're expecting for the clearance, then you'd use the red stuff. If you're measuring stuff between 0 and 15 thousandths of an inch, then you'd use the green stuff, so on and so forth. So when you're purchasing plastic gauge, you got to make sure, number one, you know the clearance you expect, and you get the plastic gauge that is appropriate for that clearance that you expect. Because if you put the wrong gauge in there, it's going to give you a reading, but it's not going to be accurate. Okay? So we'll wrap this bad guy up.
And then turn it.
Okay, that should hopefully get us. Huh? So just swing this over here if you can.
Get it behind that exhaust.
Okay, lower it down. Now this isn't going to be over center, so I'm going to have to kind of help it along a little bit. Okay, now.
Oh, yeah.
All right, go ahead. Slowly lift it up. Okay, pull it back. There you go. Keep pulling. Pulling. All right, now, make sure we get it in the right way. This looks like the back. That looks like the
We're gonna
front.
go up and over and then drop it in, right?
Yeah, so go up.
I mean, it's not upside down this time.
Well, there is really no way for it to be upside down.
Oh.
I got to worry about front to back. It'd be really embarrassing to put the crank in, get the pistons on, and realize my timing gear's over here with the bell housings. I did that once before. Okay, let's go ahead and slide this puppy in here. Okay, come on. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get the torque converter mounted up to the timing gear. Let's see here.
Pantera gives us the money.
There you go. Okay, so now with your paws, your fingers out of the way. Okay, let's slowly.
Slowly let it.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good speed right there. Let's go.
Get me down there. Or we'll be here all damn day.
Here we are.
2 days later.
Exactly. Come on, get
Let's
it
go.
down there. Get it down there.
This is, I don't want you guys.
Remember, union safety first.
Yeah, you.
You want a beer?
Give me a beer. Here, hold my drink.
Look at pushing Todd.
Let's go. Line that baby up. Nice.
See?
All right, Job, I think we've got it. Yeah, all the way down.
Then you have
That'll
to check the.
Now, if I can get my knots out, right? So we've determined that we've got the bearings in correctly because the oil holes in the bearing are lining up with the oil holes in the block. Okay?
Which oil?
Well, I'm not lifting it up,
Oh.
but the bearings down here had a hole in them that lined up with the oil hole in the block. Okay, remember, the block has internal passages drilled into it. If you just go ahead and pull that bike, Meg, we're done with this for today.
Oh, I know what, now I get it, what you're talking about.
I watched a guy crank an engine over one time with the sensor out of it. He forgot to put the sensor in it, and he was cranking it over, wondering why it wasn't starting. Well, the oil was going everywhere, man. It was like looked like a little geyser.
Coming
goes,
out of there.
What goes in there? Well, what code do you have on the computer? Oh, crank position sensor. He didn't get it. Okay, but I'll fix the sensor later. What goes in there? I'm like, dude, really?
That's behind the starter.
Your
I says, look in there. What do you see? He gets his mirror and he's looking in there. Well, it's like teeth. But what goes in there? I said, just put a plate over it. He's okay. He puts a plate over it and he's cranking the snot out of it, cranking the snot out of it. I said, what's the code? Oh, it's crank position sensor, okay. You got one? Yeah, where's it go? Oh, goes where I put. Okay. Yeah, some people you just, really? All right. So my crankshaft's in play.
Let's see that.
These are the oil holes that are going to lubricate the journals. These are the oil holes where the oil from the block goes into the crankshaft, goes up and lubes the journals. Okay? If I fail to put a bearing in correctly and I don't line the oil hole up in the bearing with the oil hole up in the block, then this dude isn't going to get lubed. That won't last very long. It's going to be a bad hour because it's going to fail probably within the hour. So you put the whole thing together. You got the bearing in wrong. You fire it up. You go on a road test. This thing's going to overheat and fail probably within the hour.
Yeah.
It's going to fail horribly bad. Okay, and you're going to break the crank, and you're going to probably destroy the block, and then the repairs are going to be on your dime, not the customer, and you'll probably owe the customer damages for time lost, loads lost, and income lost, and all that. So it's going to get really expensive for you, and you'll probably not have a job because the company you work for is like, dude, we're supposed to make money. Just thought I'd let you know. Okay. All right. So we're going to start.
And those things are okay with,
What things?
okay, it's
Right-
okay with the,
right
the
there?
oil?
Oh,
Yes.
no, radius.
Oh,
Yes.
this is assembly loop, okay? And
Yeah.
anybody else?
They're watching you.
I'm not gonna pass that apprentice test,
Probably not. It all depends on what you're wearing and what kind of grease they got. Yeah, get a little payback for you. But you do bring up a good point, okay? Somewhere in the engine's manual, there'll be approved lubricants. You know, what kind of oil you can run, what kind of antifreeze you can run, and all that. And also, in that list will be what kind of assembly lube is authorized to use when you're rebuilding the motor. And we're using that white grease, and it's pretty much universally accepted
Oh.
as. And the other question comes up, and I'm surprised nobody's asked, is, well, what happens to this lube once I fire up the engine and the oil starts? It's fine, because you're going to run it on its initial fill of oil for a brief period of time, 500, maybe 1,000 miles, then you're going to drain it because there'll be all kinds of metal shavings. Because the new bearings and the new crank and everything, they're kind of got to fit, right? They got to break in, for lack of better term. And when it's doing that, this thing's spinning in the bearing, and so the journal's kind of wearing itself into the bearing saddle, and the metal shavings are going to end up in the oil pan. So after 1,000 miles, 750 miles, you're going to change the oil out. And some engines now go to a break-in oil.
Yeah, detergent.
It's highly detergent, but it's only meant to be used for a very short period of time, because it's detergent because it needs to hold on to all the shavings that are being developed as this thing wears itself in. Okay, and then after that, this stuff will have been washed away and drained out with the break-in oil, and then you change the filters and put in the standard in-service oil for whatever it calls for. But as long as this is on the approved lubricant list, you're all right. And you go in with your...
Different oil kind of you use first, huh?
There's a break-in oil.
Break-in
Some
oil.
engine manufacturers call for break-in oil. Some just say after remanufacturing the engine, your initial oil change will be X amount of thousand of miles, and then oil change every so many thousand miles after that, the standard oil change interval. But usually your first oil change is shortly after you rebuild the thing. Okay. Okay, now,
Got it.
got it?
Got it.
All right, let's start with our caps. Grab cap number 7, which should be right there.
This one?
Yes, sir.
Drilled the balance.
And it go.
Okay.
There should be.
Bearings in it. Okay, you're holding it like it's gonna bite you, man. You're like,
No.
It's a salmon, it stinks.
okay. So, if I had the bearing shell in here and it had a hole in it, okay, the crank has to come out. I've got the wrong bearing in it. Okay, and it's easy to do. So you notice I've got a locking tab here, right there. It locks the tab to the cap. First you got to drop the bolt. That's required. Okay. So I want to make sure this is cap 7. Because somewhere on here is stamped as 7. Yeah, right there. Okay. Cap 7. Because who's to say?
And it's.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter which way.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. That's a good
Can't
question.
remember where the.
Most engines, I won't say all, but most. Did you have fun getting here today?
Oh man, Harper's closed down. The police crews are out there.
Yeah,
I
they-
don't know what happened, but it's
They
bad.
killed somebody last night.
Oh, last night?
Yeah. Well, this morning, 1 o'clock. I don't know, Mike. What time did you start shooting?
He's involved in it too. He's just.
He's wearing a cap because he doesn't want to see the bandage on his head from around it bounced off the
It'll be
skull.
like that all day then, if it's a
Oh, I doubt all day. I mean,
Yeah,
the only,
on the
the
freeway,
only,
on the 22 it said Harbor closed. So.
yeah, the only reason they're taking their time is the policeman was shot.
Oh,
But he's
yeah,
gonna,
that makes sense.
he's gonna survive. All right, now, if I remember correctly, the little hump here went towards the oil cooler side of the motor. Now I know from experience that Cummins says to seat the cap with a soft hammer. Well, if you've got it in the wrong way, it ain't gonna seat. So, is that box open, guys?
No,
One of you guys haven't picked the lock yet? What the hell's wrong with you?
hold on. I did put the replacer.
Yeah. Oh, crap!
We started with one.
Started with it. Good job.
There you go.
All right, let's see. What's that, my friend? No.
It's not sitting.
Guess you have to hit it a little bit.
Oh, really?
What? He's like, hey, man, I'll give you the money back. All right.
So you're hammering it because there's a little gap
Yep.
right there? Is
I
that
want to
what it
seat
is?
this bad bear. Well, hold this for a minute. Here, hold my bear. All right, let me prove my point. Let me prove my point.
Yeah. A little sketchy.
No, that's okay. It's, I mean, honestly, if you're sketchy on something, please stop me. That's why you guys are here. I'm going to purposely put this in
Yeah.
long. Where's my hammer? Give me the hammer.
That would fit better.
Four.
Man, this time it's seated. You bastard. Okay.
Maybe it was that right way or now.
Okay, let's try the other way. Because I know one year I couldn't get it to seat. Damn it. It's a bad week to have my manicure. That's the other bolt, so I dropped them both, so now we're good. Of course it went under there.
You just calibrated both.
That's right. Here, go ahead, wipe it on me. No, the thread. Whatever dirt. No, I'm serious. I want to get where dirt's out of there. All right, awesome, man. You definitely failed that test. Now I'll score though. Lick the dirt off. Nice. All right, so I put it on the other way. Okay. Now.
Here you go, 4.
Over there,
So maybe the other way was
Yeah.
right.
Well, there you go. So it's
Now you know.
not seating. All right. What?
Oh, Mike is looking for the mic.
Oh, I was just looking for your.
Oh, I thought it was like Mike. What day is it? Hump day. All right. So I can't seat this puppy, man.
You put it backwards, Mike?
Yeah, I did.
Why'd you do that? Proof
Just
point?
to prove my point. Yeah. Okay. No, I put it backwards, and now I'm trying to play it off like I know what the hell I'm doing. Right? No, actually, to be honest with you, last year I was in a bit of a hurry assembling this because I can't get it up through the hole complete because my hoist won't hoist. And being in a hurry, you tend to screw up things.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really take note of the position of the cap because I don't build these things but once a year. And I'm sitting there trying to drive this sucker in, and it didn't dawn on me. It's, Christ, maybe it's done backwards. So I pulled the cap out.
That's the air.
No, I don't do air tools, man. I really don't. Now, the question always comes up. Wipe the back of that bearing off on me there.
You want to dry it, go spin it.
Yeah.
There's your chance
That's-
too. You'll be right behind me.
You don't take that one to your house to the laundry?
No, I'm gonna use the machine out there. You kidding me? I bring this home, put it in the machine. My wife's gonna throw me in after.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, that'd be fun to watch. You're short, you'll fit. It's high capacity.
Might be a good thing.
What's that? Hey. The hell? Might be a good thing. Get that. Thought you guys liked me. Alright. So we're gonna go in this way.
Well, look at that.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Okay, if I put it on backwards, and let's just say I'm completely ignorant, and I run these things down, my plastic gauge reading is, if it even reads, is going to be like out there in left field somewhere, right? So this is how. Yeah, watch your fingers. You should have said that first. This is how, being in a hurry, this thing really won't let you put it in wrong because you beat on that thing all day, it ain't going in. However, some engines aren't as forgiving. They'll let you put the cap in backwards, and then here you are with that locked up motor, right? So, grab the rest of my caps and seat them.
Number
Now,
6.
I'm not going to have you guys run this down to the torque value because I got to save these
Yeah.
threads. This thing's going to be tore apart.
Don't want to drop the bolt. So. Just like somebody.
That's right. Keep it up, Sporto. You and the Crooked Union.
And the plastic gauge value, you get that from
The book.
The book?
that
Yeah, the book. Good question, Mike. The values.
That one has a number 3 on it. That one has a number 4.
You guys.
Fucked it up already.
No, that looks like a. Looks like.
They got the numbers everywhere. I
Do
don't
they?
know if somebody put another number on it.
Oh, that's just not good. Because I went off of these numbers when we reassembled it.
Yeah. Number on this thing. This is the number on this thing?
That one's 4 and that one's 3.
Well, I'll be done. Because it's stamped 5.
5.
Those look OEM to me. Oh, no, they're not, are they?
Oh, wow, look at that.
Well, when we disassembled it, I was going off of this one.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be interesting. We'll go off of this number and we'll see if it's fit.
Lorena, tú lo tienes este tiempo mientras no.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Huh? Well, no.
You said to spin it every
Every time
tap.
you put one.
What's that one got?
3.
No, no, it have to
No,
be
no,
on
no,
top.
no,
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 yeah.
no, right here. Where's the number on the?
I don't see the number made.
There's a number right there.
Too much light.
6.
That one should go there.
See that? It's a 6.
Okay, so put it here.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's a 6.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, how they have.
I wonder, does that look factory to you?
So,
You got in traffic?
Yeah.
which go off of
Yeah, let's go off of that, and if it locks up,
You know what? I think that's how they were put in, from what I remember, Mike.
what's that?
Yeah, maybe it's been through a rebuild.
It has. It has.
But you know what? When we took it apart, I think those were those numbers you went by.
I did.
Yeah.
7, 6, 5.
But this is the second one that we grabbed, so.
All right, grab me.
Pass the test.
Grab me 4.
This is 4.
Yeah, these ones been sitting.
It's 2.
Man, that's not a good thing to have the 2 numbers there, different numbers. That'll
What number is this?
throw you off.
It's on the top. On the top, right?
Yeah, right there. Well, you gotta look at the light from the light. There's one out there.
Yeah,
That's
it's right there.
test number 1.
So after you put one in,
Yes. And the conflict right now is the numbers stamped on it don't appear to match other numbers stamped on it. So, all right, go ahead and tap it in there.
Is
Nice.
this in line with the number of the cylinders too, as far as firing order? These
I don't
big-
understand the question.
Like
No,
the number
okay.
6 cylinder or?
No, it's not related.
Okay.
Good question. No. This is
Okay.
just a sequence for,
Okay, it's different, whole different, okay.
yeah, good question though. I'm glad you asked it.
What do you need? Is there?
Okay.
That should be one, right?
Yeah. Okay, you hear the pitch of the hammer change when you struck it? Okay, still turning. All right, now, typically, you would look in the manual and you would see how the OEM wants the main caps torqued. Usually, yeah, you're right. Usually you start in the middle on number 4 and you work your way outward. So you'll torque 4, you'll torque this, you'll torque that, you'll torque this, you'll torque that, you'll torque this, you'll torque that.
But not all the way, just like in a.
Depending on how the OEM wants it done. They may want it stepped down at 35 and then 70 and then 90 degrees.
Okay.
So we're gonna go 35 and then 70. Okay, because I don't want to go to 90 degrees because I don't want to tear these threads out. But that would be, well, we'll do 2 torque turns on that to give you an idea how it works. Okay. So what are those 20s?
I think they were 18.
Were they 18?
Bigger than that.
Were they bigger than that, guys? You think?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're bigger than 18.
I don't know.
I'm
the
gonna
size of
go-
the engine kind of skews my size rating a little bit. Makes
that-
it look
no, these are
smaller than it
metric.
really is.
Look at that.
22.
22.
Double deuce.
That's the size
Happens
of
to be the
crankshaft
age of my wife.
valve on a
No, I'm
third
kidding.
generation Hemi.
Don't let her hear me say that or you won't see me again.
They have it on video right now, so.
What's that?
They have it on video saying that.
That'll guarantee you a pass on the apprentice.
I believe that's called blackmail. Not that you do anything.
No, it's a negotiating tool.
okay, so you got it on film.
Oh, he wants to get it? Oh,
He
you,
has it.
oh, you're getting the torque wrench. But he's getting the torque wrench.
These lights in here are horrible.
Either that or your eyesight.
Well, that's probably part of it too.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. And Mike, here you go.
I gotta go to my eye appointment. So my doctor calls me yesterday. I need you down here ASAP. We gotta go over your blood results. I'm like, well, can I wait till Friday? No. Oh, that's tough shit, because that's when I can get down there. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. We got a job to do. I don't have time to be taking off, goofing around. He says, I'll see you Friday afternoon. You're not worried? Hey, when your time's up, doc. And I hang up. I know, I already know the doc. You're diabetic. Okay, whatever. Just give me a little meter and I'll just, my wife and I, who can get it the highest before we pass out contest. My doctor hasn't sense of humor at all.
How long have you had
Is
him?
he Asian?
Who, my doctor?
Yeah.
Dr. Musa? I don't know, 3-4 years. His first,
something.
I like the guy in that. I went in the
That's
other
not a
day
good sign.
with a sore foot. His first question is, how much time can you take off work?
Why
It's a
is
sore
You
foot,
gotta
doc.
tap it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I just don't.
You gotta tap that.
I think it's good. Let me just do it by hand. I don't like.
Got all those threads coming out.
it's like-
Do a little.
Give a little love tap.
Give it a little.
Little love
Okay,
tap.
Little love
okay.
tap.
I don't like
Little
the.
persuasion.
That's more like a WW2 wrestling tap there. I just said be nice today.
It's
All
not.
right.
It's.
All right, take the cap out.
Let's see.
This is why I don't use air tools. Every now and then you get a bolt that wants to be
Oh, yeah.
special.
You don't want to cross thread that baby.
No. Unless you want to buy a new block.
How much are they?
That was probably $1,500. Then you got to pay to have a machine.
He's a bolts.
Can you swap the bolts over? Yeah, huh?
Can I what?
Can you swap the bolts? Can you flip them?
Yeah, you can turn. That's
doesn't matter.
not super critical. All right, now that you got it up that high, Mike, start the bolts.
Seems like it's going in.
All right, start the other one. Now give it a
little tap.
twist there.
Well, let me get these
Get it
start
started.
these a little bit.
All right.
That one's not feeling it. Nope.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not
Let me see it.
I say we take it off and maybe look at it.
Yeah.
Take it off and look at it.
The PM class made cross thread that thing.
I went.
It didn't.
Look at that. That's why he's
I
wearing
might
the
have been
robe.
born at night, but it wasn't that night. Almost like I know what the hey I'm doing, isn't it? That's damn scary what that is. I had a teacher walk in drunk one day. It was great. He walks in and goes, okay, what am I teaching tonight?
All right, so
Sex ed, dude, you got the videos. You go, okay, let me go get him out of my car.
where you?
All right, so we're going to start typically on number 4. And when you count caps, it's always from the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, where'd my little socket go that I had here? My little 2mm. All right.
So you kind of zigzag your way out. Is that what it is?
Yep. So I'm going to set this to 35 foot-pounds. If I can freaking see. Okay. I'm going to start on number 4. Okay. I'm going to go to 77.
Oh, you don't do 34 all the way across first?
Depending on the OEM.
Oh.
Well, yeah, you know what? We can do that.
Are they all
you can do
different
anything
specs?
with a
No.
classroom motor.
No.
When you're doing it, it will tell you to like
Typically, that's a good question. Typically,
Go ahead.
and different ones. Like you start first on one, so everything gets seated equals the same. So like 35 first in all of them, then 7 in all of them, different angle too, 90 degrees, so it's more torque.
Okay, so we're gonna go number 4, number 5, number 3, number 6, number 2, number 7, number 1. So,
Wait,
and
how
every,
are they numbered again?
okay, so typically on this engine, and I do remember this, I torqued 4.
That's right.
So now we're gonna torque 3, 5, 2,
And
6,
7 and 1.
7, and 1, because we're gonna walk the crank down evenly into it. Because if I go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm gonna stress the crank. And by the time I get over here, I'm gonna actually literally probably, there's a chance I may bend it. Follow? So I did 4, so somebody do 5. So let's see. Oh, I need my whiteout.
What do you need?
Whiteout.
Oh, the,
To know which one you did.
Yep, I always like to mark my stuff.
Yeah. You're doing this one? Didn't he start on the, he did the center, right?
4, 5, then 2. I mean 3.
Awesome.
Doesn't matter which way?
No, 3. We don't want to buy it.
So what I'm gonna do for initial, no, just for the initial torque, so I know I had to torque them all.
Wait.
Okay, that's next. That's fine. You did this one?
yeah, we went this way, that way,
All right.
and then
So
go
now
to
it's bottom up.
Yeah. No, this is fine, that's fine.
It doesn't matter, right?
No. This particular application, it doesn't. Others may. Now, did you spin it after you torqued each one?
No.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
finish
you
that
should,
one.
yeah.
Finish that one. Now spin it.
What do you mean spin it?
Rotate
Oh.
the crank. There you go.
Oh.
So that tells me everything's good so far. You still got,
So mark it.
yep. Yep. Spin it. Okay.
Here, mark it.
Spin it.
That's good enough to spin?
Yep. Just needs to move. Okay. Spin it. Okay. Now, set the wrench for 77.
Wait, did we already?
Yes. Yes, we did.
Someone's not doing their job.
You wiping up grease on me, pal.
77. Mark it 77.
Set it to 77.
Well, how do you?
You gotta unlock it. There you go. Now turn the handle.
Man, you are right.
Tends to happen sometimes.
He's always right.
No, not always. According to my wife, I'm very
Nah.
correct.
You be both.
77.
And after the dog
77.
scratched my face, who do you think she went to first? Oh, are you guys okay? I'm like, don't worry about the blood. It'll stop eventually.
Okay.
So again, 4.
Okay.
Who did it?
Spin it. Next. Good. Spin it.
I did.
Ooh, I lost. There it is, right here.
Okay.
Put this whole
That? Yeah, right. You do that. Let me get my breaker bar.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, you definitely don't pass a class like that.
All right, now comes the fun part. Let me have my socket. And Deputy Smith, stand outside that front door. So you go ahead and walk on out there with that wrench. Now comes the
You
fun
want me to
part.
set this at 0?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take number 4. I'm gonna go 90 degrees with it, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Go ahead. So,
Can
there
we,
and there.
Now what are you doing?
Can we check the end plate?
Yep, we are.
Yeah, okay.
What are you doing now?
He's applying at 90 degrees. It's a torque turn.
Oh,
Come on, man.
He's
he didn't eat his Wheaties.
All right. That's fine. 90 degrees there. So what I do,
39.
and now I gotta just go here.
It's on the 7.
You're just putting a little extra on the thrust bearing.
I'm just putting the bearing, putting the,
right?
keep going, you gotta go to here,
To the 6th or
There you
5th
go.
hole, you're gonna be like, geez.
right there. Now, I don't wanna do that to all of them, I just give you an idea of what's going on. All right? 'Cause you're gonna be like,
No, I
But do you
did.
have
so, now, why did I go to a torque turn, application? What's important about that?
Stretch the bolts.
Right. I don't want my bolt in the elastic range because I don't need this cap going every time it fires. And right now, these bolts are what they call the elastic/plastic range, meaning they'll stretch and they'll recover. That's not a good application for this part of the motor. So when he put it 90 degrees, he put that bolt at its yield point. It ain't stretching. It's going to stay put. And now I got a uniform clamp load on my bearing cap. Okay, so now that cap is not going anywhere. Now, the kind of the worrisome side of this is if these are used bolts, which they are, and I measured them on the manufacturer's provided bolt chart, and they're the appropriate length. They're not stretched too long.